podcast series is part of a mission of the New York Intellectual Property Law Association NYIPLA Past Presidents Committee to preserve a snippet of the history of our association through the eyes of our past presidents, and to provide continuity for our century-old association's values and traditions for future NYIPL leaders. I'm Rob Rando, the current president of NYIPLA for the 2023-2024 term. Today, we are pleased to have with us Peter Thurlow. He was the 96th president of the NYIPLA during the 2018-2019 term. Pete, before we get into any questions, is there anything you want to talk about up front?
No, the only thing I'd say up front is just excited to have to do this podcast. Excited that you're doing it, Rob, because we've been friends for many years, mostly through the Bar Association. So to start for future leaders, the exciting thing about the Bar Association is you get to meet great people like Rob Rando and many others that we'll discuss during this hour. But the other thing I'd say is as part of this podcast, which I think is a great idea, it just kind of brings back memories since I was president back in 2018-19. Seems like yesterday, but a lot of the questions that you sent me gave me an opportunity to reflect on that year, and it goes by too quick, but it was a special time in my career.
All right, thank you. Thank you for those kind words, Peter. And I'm glad it could have that impact. So can you tell us a little about who you are and where you are in your career today?
Great. So where I am today is I've been practicing patent law since the late 90s. And so about 20, 25 years into my career. I started actually as a mechanical engineer. I went to a school, U.S. Merchant Marine Academy, graduated all the way back in 1988, working business first. Then went to law school at night at Brooklyn Law School, graduated in 1996. At the time I was an engineer, I transferred over to the law department at Con Edison, and I stayed there to 2000. So from 1990 to 2000, I was at Con Edison in New York City. In the late 1990s, I got involved in some work at Con Edison in the patent area. And the first topic I still remember, it was how to deliver data through the electrical line on an electrical circuit, and worked on that. And it was different from the work I was doing in electric policy and regulation. So I started, all of a sudden I became the patent person at Con Edison. That introduced me to the area and found it very fascinating. From there, I joined Fitzpatrick, Chella, Harper and Cinto, which was a boutique law firm in Midtown Manhattan at 30 Rockefeller Center. I started there in 2000, and I worked in all patent prosecution. And then did that for 5 years. And I joined the international law firm of Jones Day, where I was there for 11 years. And I got to see the much bigger patent system, a lot of M&A work, international patent work, litigation support. And I did a lot of work with the patent office, which we'll get more into as we have this discussion. And then after being at Jones Day for 11 years, we were on the big company side, working with some big company, international Fortune 100 companies. At the age of 50, I joined a Midwestern firm called Pulcinelli. It's a good Italian name for New York, Pulcinelli. And I joined to help grow the New York office. We had about 650 attorneys just in the United States and around 20 offices. Now we're up to 1,000 plus attorneys, and I'm a senior equity partner at Pulcinelli. We had 12 attorneys in New York when I joined, and now we're up to 70 plus attorneys. And we have about 165 plus professionals in the intellectual property patent area. And I chair many different groups and take an active role in the IP practice. So it's been a good ride.
Yeah, well, that's a tremendous journey, Peter. Much of which I wasn't aware. I've known you, when you were at Jones Day and then moving over to Pulcinelli.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, how did you first become aware of NYIPLA?
So back in the day, as you remember, the boutique law firms, the Penny and Edmonds, the Fitzpatrick, Cello, Harper and Cinto, and many other firms, they took a very, very active role in the New York Intellectual Property Law Association. And like you, Rob, even at a younger age, I was very active in the firm and wanted to learn a lot about more about patents, but I wanted more. And I just always thought, going back to even the year 2000, that I wanted to practice, but I wanted to learn more and get active in the intellectual property community. So you remember Peter Saxon is a former president of the Bar Association, and he was down the hall from me. And after I was at Fitzpatrick Cello for several months, there was a number of partners that were very active in the association. So I walked down the hall and I said, Peter, I said, I would like to become more active in the intellectual property community, not just prepare and prosecute patent applications for our clients, but I like to become more active. And I never forget, I'll never forget his response was, he said, Peter, why don't you get involved in the New York Intellectual Property Law Association? So that's what started it. And I became a member and became very active. And to this day, I haven't talked to or seen Peter in quite a long time. I owe a lot to him based on that one conversation.
And do you recall when you first became involved?
It was in the year 2000, early 2000s. I started working on some committees, and then so it was the early 2000s. The first committee or number of committees I got involved in were the events and meetings committee, and then also the patent law committee. For the events and meetings committee, it was kind of fun because you remember, Rob, we used to have a lot more in-person meetings, and we used to invite some really great people from the patent office and people that have significant, judges and others that had significant IP patent experience, in-house IP counsel, just to talk at monthly meetings. And I became very active early on in the 2000s. So that was the start, but then from there it quickly grew.
Sure. So, besides what you already discussed, was there anything else that inspired you to join the organization?
Um, Once I met with Peter, I asked other partners at Fitzpatrick Cello, Harper and Cinto. You may remember the name Bob Bechtold. Bob was a leader in the pharmaceutical litigation practice. He was also a big Knicks fan, New York Knicks fan, and I remember speaking to him because he was one of those guys that was so well respected in the industry. Um, and I just started talking to other partners at Fitzpatrick Cello, asked them about their experience, and they all recommended that I get involved. I forget the time frame, but shortly after I joined the Bar Association, there were some controversial rule packages that were put forth um, that dealing with continuation practice to limit the number of continuations that could be filed. There was actually years of litigation on that topic. There was changes to the rules for information disclosure statements and other requirements that they needed younger attorneys to write in response to the federal rules of procedure notices from the patent office. They needed younger attorneys to do the research and to write the responses. So I forget exactly what year that was, Rob, but I volunteered for that as part of the patent law committee. And I remember shaking in my boots because I was still a young practitioner at the time, and I had to go in front of the presidents at the time. Pasquale, I think, from he was one of the guys at Fitzpatrick, Chell that was there. Ed Vassallo was involved, and others, and it was kind of like outside my normal role of writing patent applications, but I had to articulate what the rules were and what I thought the Bar Association's response to that should be. So that was an early thing that kind of was like between the meetings I was doing and then those early rules that I got pretty active in became really exciting, and then and so on. So
Yeah, I think that's, that kind of points to one of the great benefits for more junior attorneys and younger practitioners to really be able to get some experience in terms of, making presentations and also taking on some leadership roles. So you've talked about, different activities and roles that you engaged in early on as a member. Are there any other ones that you could think of while we're having this conversation?
yeah, I think going back to the meetings and forums committee, I think one of the great examples for those younger practitioners that listen to this is that there was a gentleman that at the patent office at the time. His name is John Whalen. He was solicitor at the patent office, which is a part of the patent office that argues their cases before the federal circuit. And there's maybe 15 or 20 or maybe 30 attorneys that work in the solicitor's office at the patent office. John came up and spoke at one of the events. And John and I became quick friends. We were both suffering New York Jets fans. And John said, yeah, John said, that was my introduction to John and the patent office. And John knew the work I was doing on or around that time on all these new rule procedures and so on. And back in the early 2000s, the patent office used to have a lot more publicly available roundtables. And as you know, Rob, I started representing the Bar Association at a very young age with respect to what the association's responses would be to these. And we would provide feedback. And I started going down to the patent office at least quarterly, if not more, to attend these roundtable discussions. And John Whalen, being the great guy he is, introduced me to dear friends of mine from the patent office that I'm still friends with today. Elizabeth Doherty, the late commissioner of the patent office, John Dole, that I was very good friends with, and then others. So I guess the message is that I joined the Bar Association to get more active in these things. They opened up the door to the patent office from that one meeting that I had with John Whalen. John opened up the door to the patent office, and that just changed my career, which we can get into as far as years later. For 6 years total, I was a member, 2 3-year terms on the patent office, patent public advisory committee, which each member is selected by the chamber secretary of commerce. And I got really involved in patent policy, working with Congress and working with the patent office and others, and great people, dear friends to this day. The message is that, and PPAC is still available if anybody listening to that is interested. None of that would have happened without me first starting at the Bar Association. None of what happens in my career today really happens without me becoming a member of the Bar Association. It just opened up so many doors that I didn't know what to expect, but I took a leap, and it really enhanced my career.
That's a perfect example of the career development benefit of being part of the NYIPLA. So Peter, did there come a time when you decided you wanted to assume a leadership role, or did it evolve over time?
I think for me, it evolved over time. I was having so much fun between the patent law section and the meetings and events and meetings forum or meetings and forums committee, excuse me, that what I'd say in general is that what I noticed, with all respect, not you or anybody listening, I found a lot of people would join the association to put it on their resume and for something that they could say they did. I never wanted to be one of those. I always wanted to become actively engaged. So by being actively engaged, it opened up a lot of doors. And then, and as I became actively engaged, the presidents, and I have a whole list of people, whether it's Ed Masalo, Anthony LaCicero, Ann Hassett, Will Hanley, John Murnane, John Pegram, Mary Lee Jenkins is maybe the best example. I just became friends with them, and they were more senior to me in their career. And as you know, Rob, you're probably identifying some young people in the association that have a potential to keep the mission going in the association right now. That
Absolutely.
that you can mentor, like you did to me, even at certain points, because we became friends. And then you want to keep the association going for another 100 plus years, which is challenging for many reasons, and post COVID and so on. So as I became friendly with the presidents, as I did more work with Congress, the patent office, as my name got out there and worked with the directors of the patent office, it was a natural thing that I kind of was asked to be on the ladder and to take on more of a role there. So it kind of, I was probably active. So I was president from 2018. I was active for 15 or 16 years before, or maybe 12 or 13 or 14 before I actually got on the ladder, because I jumped around so many different facets of the association.
Yeah. So I think you've already answered this question, but I'll ask it in case there's anything needs to be filled in. Can you describe your trajectory in the association leading to becoming president?
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned, I think it was really, I wish I could say, I tell my kids, plan the work, work the plan. I wish I could say that I had all that. I never had a plan. The plan I had was just to be active. I didn't just want to have it on my resume and to get engaged. I can tell you one more story. At the time, when I was chair of the or co-chair of the meetings and forums committee, and you're very smart, Rob. You would probably remember the case, but there was a case that was going up to the federal circuit, and it was I'm sorry, I forget the name of it, but I actually organized a meeting where the plaintiff's counsel or the I shouldn't say plaintiff, I should say the patent counsel and the groups arguing on the other side. I'm not describing it well, but basically we had a meeting where a week before they were arguing, either before the full federal circuit or actually the Supreme Court, they came to the Bar Association at the Harvard Club and argued their cases. And then we had, I think, the nice woman from IBM that worked on that case that was also on the panel. The place was full at the Harvard Club. We had 100 plus people. And I was just like, wow, this is cool. We're here, and these attorneys are practicing their cases before they actually go up to the Supreme Court. so so based on all that and the buzz around some of the things I was doing, I think the natural trajectory was to to assume a leadership role. The other thing I had, as everyone knows, all too well, the biggest event of the year was the judges' dinner, and we started hosting the directors of the patent office. I don't know when we started doing it, Rob. I'm sure you were active, but we started having the director of the patent office come up to a lunch the day of the dinner. And then because of all my connections at the patent office, we'd have the different leadership teams. And we did sometimes have 10 people come up from the patent office, including director, to the events around the judges dinner. As I started organizing that and working with the presidents again, that trajectory led to me kind of being a name that was known to be on the ladder itself.
Well, that's a great description, and it's good to know. I may reach out to you to liaise with the current director so that she'll come up for the dinner this year.
Yeah, that's a
And
separate topic. But yeah, I'll talk to you. We'll have to get a little bit already involved in others, but yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So before we get into some specifics about your presidency, can you give us a general overview of the intellectual property landscape in terms of the issues that were confronting the IP community during the time you were president?
The big issue, and it's still unfortunately an issue today, and something that we did a significant amount when I was even on a ladder, was the issue around the lack of clarity around Section 101 in the Supreme Court decisions. That was always a concern that many bar associations were involved in. And then, for those years on the ladder, and then when I became president, it was very active. When I was working with the patent office and a member of PPAC, Michelle Lee was one of the directors I worked with. She had several days of meetings at the patent office laying out the framework for Section 101. And we worked on a lot of committees with the patent office and others on those issues. And, that was one major issue leading up to it, the clarity issue, lack of clarity about what was covered in Section 101. The other big issue that we still have challenges with today, and I'll get into my military background and the work I do with DARPA now, was that the intellectual property theft with China was kind of a big deal, an issue, and is still a challenging issue. So those are some of the things that we worked on with the patent office and other chambers of commerce and so on, to discuss the importance of intellectual property to the national interest, our national economy. And what I'd say is, one I remember a study that came out from Congress that said the value of intellectual property to our United States businesses was $5 trillion, and that there was real concern about losing our position and devaluing our intellectual property rights, where we were concerned that was going to slip, so that was a real significant issue.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's no doubt that IP is the biggest driver of the economy. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, and those are really compelling issues, and they're still present today. There's no question about it. Congress has convened hearings on the issue of China and IP theft.
Yeah, the other things I'd add, back to now, I can't believe I was just talking to a client about the first inventor to file system that became effective March 16, 2013. And then the PTAB issues with inter parties review and post-grant review and so on. Back in the day, 2011 and those years leading up to the passage of the statutes for that was very significant, that I was active on that. When I was president, those issues and the implementation of the first inventor to file and the PTAB continued to present a lot of challenges just because of PTAB and inter parties review, and it was very significant. You may remember when PTAB first, the Patent Trial and Appeal Board first came into place, I think it's fair to say they did not expect it to be used as much in maybe the pharmaceutical industry, if I can say if that's accurate or not. But there were some things going on early on, because to invalidate patents, there was just a lot of things. Judge Rader made some comments, remember, about what do they call the patent execution squad or something, or there were things going on with filing the petitions and then shorting stocks that became very active, where the SEC got involved and so on. So there was a lot of issues back then when I was president, and in and around the time, the years before, that were very significant that we got involved in.
No, you're right. I mean, there were quite a few, uh, significant issues that were being debated, and certainly the American Invents Act has kept and to this day has kept both the Federal Circuit and the Supreme Court very busy.
Right, right. The one thing I'll add, and you can smile at this because you definitely remember, and I say this with all respect, because these days I still work with plenty of big companies and others, but I'm fortunate enough to work with startups and go on the roller coaster with them and do much more than IP. But back in the day, and I won't name names, but there was a very active Independent Inventors Association that was very active in and around the years I was president of. I became friendly with them because I believe in the startup community and the importance to this country and our economy. But let's just say they were active at the day of the dinner lunch that we hosted, and they were
Yes.
very active at the dinner that night. And that will be a story I'll come back to I don't want to jump ahead, but that
Sure.
was made for some interesting events for the nervous time for the events there.
Yeah, yeah. No, I know exactly what you're referring to, and I think you'll be happy to know we this year we're going to bring back the Day of Dinner CLE program as well.
Nice, nice. I think going back to the director, she's terrific. Obviously, got a full plate. I currently serve as an advisor to DARPA, the Advanced Research Projects Administration, just on advice regarding intellectual property, and the director's doing a lot with veterans, and we've been corresponding about trying to get together to work on some of those issues. So, but I think if we can get her up there to do the more traditional kind of state of where the IP system is, I think she would enjoy that.
Yeah, no, we would be thrilled and honored to have her. So anything you can do, Pete, to help effectuate that, much appreciated, much appreciated. So now if you could maybe provide a general overview of the various tasks and responsibilities that you were charged with during your term as president.
So a lot of it is just being a voice of reason. New York is. I think there's just a recent study saying New York came out like #1 city in the world or something, and it is the center of commerce, center of the financial capital of the world, in my opinion. And there's just a lot of business here and a lot of interest. So, I think, as you'll hopefully agree, Rob, we're not our client as president and active leaders in the Bar Association is not, one or the other. It's really the system itself. So that a system that was put in the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8 of the United States Constitution, can thrive and serve the interests of the people of the country. So we're really not, there is some pharma associations, there's some biotech, there's some tech associations that are focused on those missions. Our mission for the association is really about the health of the intellectual property system to foster innovation in our country. And being in New York, with all respect, we have more gravitas, more weight than maybe other states that I won't mention because I don't want to upset anybody. But so that was something that, with all the issues that we discussed just now, that whether it was Chinese IP theft, the clarity of Section 101, PTAB, First Amendment to file, et cetera, litigation reform was another thing with damages and so on that you remember. It was really to provide objective advice And we did that when we met with the Senate Judiciary, when we met with the Patent Office. We always said, let's do what's right for the system itself. And that's not easy. That's a challenge because members of the Bar Association have specific interests, but especially as president, we had to address what's best for the system itself and not any one party. And I think the association for the more than 100 years has always kept that in mind.
Yeah, Peter, I'll say this. You have described so well the fact that we're not just a regional bar association. We have national and I would say even international perspective and impact. And as you know, NYIPLA, we are active and our voice is heard in all three branches of the federal government.
Right,
And again, it's an objective voice, as you pointed out, and it's really in the interest of protecting and the IP ecosystems.
right,
And
right. I'll add to that one point because you remember this. When I was president and coming up on the ladder and stuff, one of the issues that you're very familiar with was to get a greater voice in Washington, D.C., in the House and the Senate, specifically the House and Senate Judiciary meetings, uh, committees, and then also at the Patent Office so that the director would come up to our meetings and they would know who the NYIPLA is. So folks like me, you, Ann Hassett, Anthony Tony LaCicero, and others, we would go down to the patent office. But you remember that was around the time period when we were looking at bringing a group from DC, a lobbyist that can help us. And I said we should speak to Chris Israel and so on. So it was around that time he came in and got and still is to today working with the association. And Chris is still a dear friend and an ACG group that he works with. We work with, and that's another benefit of being part of the association that became good friends with Chris, and we're still friends today.
yep, and he provides tremendous advice and wisdom and advocacy on behalf of the NYIPLA. So let me switch gears a bit. So do you have any specific goals or a mission that you wanted to accomplish during your time as president? And if so, what were they?
You know, it's funny as I looked at the questions when you sent it, I thought this question probably made me think back most. It made me think back when I was first made president. I had to give a speech to 40 or 50 people that were in the room. My own goal, I can't say I had a clear goal as far as we got to get Section 101 right. We got to do A, B, and C. It was more that I just wanted to be active. And it goes back to I wanted the association to have a voice in the very important debate as far as the state of law of intellectual property, not just patents, but also obviously trademarks and copyrights. So it was just really to be active. That was the goal. And I think looking back, as I thought about this question, all the things that we've discussed, I can't say everything was done during the year as president, but as I was leading up to be president, my activity over the years and the year afterwards, I think the association was active, and I think one of the hopes for the future with the younger generation coming up is that they remain active and have a voice in the discussion about where the state of intellectual property is and where it's going.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And, I think one way to try to accomplish that
Yeah,
is to try to, demonstrate, by example, the interest and active role to inspire future leaders to pursue that as well.
right.
Um, so Pete, From your perspective, what was your greatest accomplishment or proudest moment during your time as president?
I'm just sending a quick text
Sure, sure.
at 1 p.m. So forgive this one delay here.
That's okay. You know, life goes on around us.
Exactly. Um, so my greatest accomplishment was just trying to work, with all the different committees and really what I think what I was probably most proud of is just although we didn't resolve it, was to continuing to highlight the Section 101 issues. Um, it just became a real challenge, and we had several days of meetings at the in the Senate. I think it was 4 days of meetings, Rob,
Yep.
in the Senate, and then we had to work with Senator Coons from Delaware and the nice senator from North Carolina.
Senator Tillis, yes.
Yeah, Senator Tillis, and then that was just a lot of working with the different organizations and our own organization, and I'd say that it was exciting, challenging, and very rewarding, but it was challenging to the extent that we had a lot of different interests in the association, and as you recall, the issue was, should we do anything? Should we sit on the sidelines? And going back to the whole idea of just wanting to be active, we wrote letters, and you know this because you were involved. I became so active where we dealt with the Bar Association. The Bar Association would write a letter, and then I was able to get other organizations involved. I remember working with Boston and several other state IP associations to get them involved in that one issue, so that it just wasn't us. And then through that, we got other companies and organizations involved. So it was a little bit like kind of a grassroots uh, issue that I think, Rob, you know better than me, but there was just hearings this week, more discussions about Section 101. But to me, they don't have those discussions this past week unless we started what many have done leading up to it. Sometimes things in Washington take years to get going, and at that time it was something that we worked on a lot.
No, you're absolutely right. There were hearings by the Senate the sub group of the Senate Judiciary Committee on IP that Senators Coons and Tillis conducted, uh, um, dealing with the patent law reform issues, and certainly 101 is part of them. So, you described the challenges that were confronted, while you were president, especially given that issue and with you know, the wide range of positions among our membership. Um, and so I'll ask you, what would you characterize that as your greatest challenge as president, or is there something else that you would view as was your greatest challenge?
Um, I never looked at it as a challenge. It was a task that took a considerable amount of time, just kind of herd the cattle, if that's the way to say it, just to kind of deal with that. I think as president, one of the most important things is picking a speaker,
Yes,
as you know.
yeah.
So I think,
Living through that right now, Peter.
yeah. So I think I can tell the story what happened there, and it's relevant to today's where we are in the world. Back then, through the association and work I was doing with the government, my initial guest speaker was Mr. Biden, and at the time we were communicating with his staff and hoping that he would come the speaker, and he was at least very cordial through his team and so on, and wanted the opportunity. But the problem, as you know, Rob, is that we sent out the request, and then it was, we're interested, but we need another week, another month, and then it got time where I forget the exact timing where he's going to run for president or just be active, and I had to wait 2 or 3 months, and the staff at the NYFPLA was like, Pete, we got to do something. So that was a challenge, just because this is the event of the year, and as many great things as we do, it's what the association is known for. So that was a challenge for me because I couldn't control it. And as it turned out, I had to get a plan B, and I attended a work event for Posanelli down in Texas, and John Meacham, the great historian, spoke at the event. And I'm a big history buff, and I'm a big fan of his and many others. And I was able to get connected to his team through that meeting, after meeting John. And then now President Biden's team got back to me and said he wouldn't be able to do the speech, to be the speaker. So I got in touch with John's team, and he was gracious enough to become the speaker. So that was challenging because it was something outside of my control. The things inside, and hard work, and connecting with other associations and one-on-one, and bending a few arms, or whatever the saying is, I was able to handle that fine, but I couldn't control the speakership, and fortunately everything worked out with John Meacham. But that was a little nerve-wracking, I'll tell you the least.
Yeah, I know the feeling right now, Peter.
Yeah.
So can you identify anything that you would characterize as your fondest memory?
The fondest memory is always, and I'm not joking around when I say it, it's really the conversations that I had with you, with others in the association, the friendships. The day, obviously for folks like us, or me and you, that judges dinner was, I had my kids. I have 4 kids that are now 21 to 27, and my wife of now 31 years. But the day of the judges dinner, I had several tables with my family and stuff, and it was a big day. I'm getting somewhat emotional about it, but it was a big day where the fondest memory was, you go up on the stage and you look out, and there's your much younger kids. We had great pictures from that night. It was a great time. All my siblings were there, and it was kind of after 20 years of 15, 20 years being very active with the association, to have the unique opportunity as president, to kind of stand on the stage as representing the association in front of, whatever it was, 2,000 people, including all the respected federal judges, and to be on the dais. That was a fond memory, and very something special that I will always recall. So fortunately, I did not lose my voice, and you won't lose your voice. But I was very nervous, and I was also very thankful my wife came early, because I was very concerned she'd come late that night. So that was fond memory was, honey, make sure you get here on time, and that was very special.
Well said, Peter. Well said. So let me ask you, what advice can you give our younger or newer members of NYIPLA if they aspire to assume a leadership role, or maybe even one day become president of NYIPLA?
I think the theme that hopefully I gave during this was, for this really enjoyable discussion, and it's just really so great to reconnect with you and the NYIPLA family, is just to get active. Don't become a member just to have it on your resume. Become active, and make this more than just a kind of a career thing. That the patent system, something that's unique to governments around the world, and the rights of inventors and so on, and the importance of the system going back to the founding of our country. I think as I do work now at a much higher level because I'm more senior, and then I work with the military, with DARPA, and so on. You see the value of our intellectual property system, how unique it is as compared to other countries. But like our democracy, not to get too philosophical, like our democracy, as we're in the year 2024 and it's election year, we need to have good young people that have an interest in protecting the strength and strengthening our intellectual property system for their generation and future generations, because it's so critical. So that would be the message: is get involved, support the system. And the other thing I'd say from a more practical system perspective is that being an attorney is not just all about billable hours. It's about the relationships I have with you, Rob, with Fike and others at the association that were, as you look back on your career and you do one of these podcasts for them 20 years later, there's so much more value to that than just billing hours and doing so. If they can put a bigger purpose into their career, I think what I'd say is that they're going to make their career a lot more rewarding than just writing a patent application or doing a litigation or working on a PTAB proceeding. If they can affect change and be part of the protecting our very important intellectual property system, I think they'll find that very important years later as they get older. Like I can't believe I'm getting older. So
Yeah, that happens to all of us, right?
it does. You can't stop time. But yeah, get involved, be active, and just enjoy the ride.
Yeah. So I mean, you per perfectly described what it would take, what it does take, to if you have aspirations and the goals as a member. Is there anything else that you could add so that our younger members can see the benefit that they can derive from their membership?
Well, for any members that have the chance to listen to this, Peter Thurlow at Polsinelli. If they ever want to send me an email, the information is available on the Polsinelli website. I'm 58. I plan on working for at least 7 more and hopefully longer years. That please reach out if I can ever help on this. The patent office work I do with DARPA would be fun. The other thing on a personal nature, kind of, I was talking to my assistant. I said, to the extent somehow my grandkids or others see this in some, if they're doing some research years ago, I don't know where this is going to be stored, but I hope they're also active and get involved in whatever they're doing. So to give the personal perspective on that. But as I look at some home movies over the holidays about, when the kids are much younger, the time does fly. So, hopefully the younger generation can see the value of being part of the association that's been so important to my career and quite frankly my life, that I hope they get involved.
Oh, that's wonderful, Peter. And we only have maybe another minute or two. Are there any final thoughts that you want to share as we wrap up?
No, just really, really enjoyed reconnecting, Rob. Looking forward. I will be attending the judges' dinner this year, and
Tremendous.
then let's reconnect separately. I'm in Florida next week, but let's reconnect separately just to see how we can help with the judges' dinner and other activities. And always happy to help you and anybody in the association and give everyone my best.